will say, because they'll say it anyhow. And I'd rather have a state of Israel that is hated by the whole world than an Auschwitz that's loved by it. Faith in God and a powerful army, that's the way we will bring the redemption to the Jewish people speedily and happily in our days. Amen, amen.
We're going to be taking questions from the audience in a few minutes, but in the interim I find myself in the unenviable position of following the Rabbi. And we'll start with the questions.
Okay. All right. If everyone will be seated, then we can begin. Otherwise, it'll be difficult. Let's go from here to there and so on. Yes.
May I ask a silly question? Why do they give checks to the Arabs for having babies? I don't get that.
It isn't a silly question. It's a very, very logical question.
Yeah, I can't figure it.
Because it's a democracy. And we have to realize that when there is a contradiction between democracy and survival has to come first. I'm all for democracy for every Jew, but not for my enemies. Because that's suicide and not survival. Let's move from here to there. Yes. Yes.
Take your seats.
Is Israel not militarily dependent on America for forces, for money, for equipment, for technology? And I believe the answer is yes. If that's so, would it not be almost suicidal for Israel to engage in transfer?
First of all, Israel is not dependent upon that for Israel from America. It is not. If Israel will have to go it alone, it has the weapons, and it has weapons which America would not like to see Israel use. And that's our trump card. We have a lot of weapons which are not happy weapons, and which we wouldn't like to use. But if America would ever say, we don't give you this, we'll say, okay, so then we'll use that. If I were George Bush and I heard you ask that question, that would be an invitation to me to pressure Israel. Every time a Jew says, but we need America, America says, okay, they need us. Stop talking like that. It's an important thing for us to realize that in the end, America has a vested interest in a strong and stable ally in the Middle East, and has no choice. It's either Israel or Abu Dhabi. And that's no choice.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
My follow-up question is, if Israel does decide to engage in transfer, wouldn't that start almost a civil war between the leftist and the rightist Israelis?
Well, why doesn't the leftist worry about, if we give up land, won't that start a civil war between the right and left? Our problem is that we sit and worry about every possibility that might come up. I hope it doesn't happen. Secondly, I want you to know, don't overestimate the left inside Israel. Their greatness lies in the fact that they have control of news media. And so you think that they're a tremendous force inside Israel. All the kibbutzim together, all of them in Israel, make up less than 3% of the country. All of them together. If you look at the elections, at the voting, you'll see the left is in a pit. The far left, a pitiful little thing. I hope to God Jews will never, ever, ever, ever lift hands against a second Jew. But if it will be the will of the majority in a democratic fashion to transfer the Arabs out, we will expect the minority to accept that, just as they would expect us to accept the fact that if they give up land, that is the will. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Yeah, yes, yeah, okay, yeah.
Ruling out this transfer, if you were a high Israeli government official and you knew the figures precisely about Aliyah and Yeridah,
Yes.
and you could project out birth rates for Jews and Arabs, you had all the figures, computer printouts.
Yes.
But ruling out, this government official is secular, he may be on the left, so ruling out this transfer, right now, what do you decide to do?
I don't know. You generally decide to do nothing. That is always,
You're telling me
that is the Shamir plan. Tomorrow will be a better day.
There's nobody with any kind of brains to foresee.
It's not a question of brains. No, it is a question of...
Project out. What's gonna,
I understand.
You have a catastrophe in 10
Right.
years looming.
Right.
You've got to decide now.
So he sits and he says, but America, what he says is that question you asked. But my God, America won't do this, America won't do that, and so on. We'll have to hope that somehow there will be maybe 5 million Jews are gonna come tomorrow from true. You're right.
Practically speaking, you do not hope for that because history shows that.
Okay, look, you asked me a question. I can only give you an answer if you tell me, or if you ask me, what is your view, what do you say? I can tell you what I can't tell you what people who are irrational.
You have your ear to the ground. You're in the Knesset. You must have heard something about speculation.
I'll do better. I'll do better. I'll tell you what Shimon Peres said on Nightline in 1985. I was on Nightline. 2 days later, Peres was on Nightline. And Ted Koppel said, Kahane was on, and he raised some very, very disturbing questions. What do you have to say to that? Now, Shimon Peres said, I imagine 1 million people watch Nightline. He said, as of now, we have no answer. That's in the transcript. As of now, we have no answer. Now, if you think that is a rational answer, I don't. As of now, we have no answer. So what are you waiting for? The answer is that when a problem is so agonizing, and when the solution is even more agonizing, you irrationally decide maybe it'll get better. You're afraid to do that. If you think that Chamberlain in the 1930s didn't realize that Hitler was dangerous, he was, but he said, my God, if we go to war, my God, my God, my God. In the end, he had to go to war when it was infinitely worse. And that's unfortunately people are. We don't like to make hard decisions.
Follow-up is then you haven't even heard any scenarios, speculative, something?
No.
Nothing?
No, I haven't heard anything.
With Israel,
The answer is either throw them out, or I have never heard another answer from anybody else. Yes, sir.
How can capitalism be brought into Israel? Because as you say, the economy now is getting to be a third world country.
By simply voting into government, a party committed to that. I mean, what is the problem? I was convinced that Begin would change the country in every way. Everybody was convinced. We were convinced that he was going with the liberals who were committed to, free enterprise and so on, Ehrlich and so on. And nothing happened. Nothing changed. That's the incredible thing. It isn't a difficult matter. It isn't a difficult matter. You vote in a party which has as its platform free enterprise. The cutting of taxes, not the raising of taxes, the cutting of taxes. People who will make money, who have the opportunity to make money, will work hard. And then they'll pay taxes. Today, there isn't a businessman in Israel who isn't a thief, and a real thief. He has to be, otherwise he won't be in business. Yeah.
As American Jews who support Israel.
Right.
What kind of pressure can we put on to try to get them to have a...
I have to tell you something. In Israel, they really are not bothered by your pressure. They really are. There was a... Shamir is a very hard-nosed guy. He doesn't really care what you say unless he thinks that you really represent a lot of people, a lot of money, and you don't, because the real big people either don't care or are on the left, and that's a tremendous tragedy. You make sure that I get to become the prime minister, and then it'll be okay. Yeah, in the back.
Rabbi, on Sunday at the Park Plaza Hotel, there's going to be an all-day...
I'm sorry, what?
On Sunday at the Park Plaza, there's going to be an all-day conference taking the media to task for its anti-Israel bias.
Uh-huh.
What would you say would be practical actions that Jews could take here that to turn around that kind of distortion and lies that we hear daily?
I have to tell you honestly, and I must be honest with you, I don't care. I really don't care. It bothers me more that Israel TV is worse than Peter Jennings. That's what bothers me. It bothers me that Mabat, the main news in Israel at 9 p.m., its editor is an Arab Druze named Rafik Halabi. He tells me what I'll see. And what I see is some poor Arabs whose home has been demolished, and they sit and crying, what did we do? Well, you didn't do anything. Your son killed a Jew, otherwise nothing, nothing much. That's what bothers me. An interview with the parents of some kid who was killed. Of course, nobody ever says why he was killed and what he did. It's bad here. It's worse there, because they brainwash the youth there, and those are the future soldiers. And these kids grow up saying, are we right? Are we wrong? And if you don't believe in the justice of your cause, you're not going to win a war. Now, having said that, I don't really care. I'll answer your question. Look, it's extremely difficult to pressure big news people. You have in this city two viciously anti-Israel papers, Christian Science Monitor and the Boston Globe, and I mean really vicious. I live in Israel, and we hold press conferences, and when I look at the foreign press people seated around that table, I say they must have been chosen in Damascus. I mean, not only anti-Israel, a lot of them really openly anti-Semitic. And I don't know, certainly I don't know what you can possibly do except mount an ongoing campaign of demonstrations at the Boston Globe, or more important, try and patronize the other, the Herald, or whatever it is over here. And you don't have to like the Herald's policy. That's not the point here. That's not the point. You don't have to like Jesse Helms I don't like Jesse Helms. But if Jesse Helms is good for Israel, then I like Jesse Helms. What's the difference if I don't like him? I don't like him, but I like him. We have got to follow a rule. Is it good for the Jews? Then do it. That's what has to be done finally. So I think that there have to be demonstration, protests, or sit-in inside the Boston Globe. It's a tremendous... So they're arrested, big deal. But believe it's nothing over here. Nothing at all. It's a joke. They won't press charges either. Because the last thing that they want is, the Herald to have as its, from a headline, Boston Globe City. So, but you have to have a little imagination and a little guts. And don't be afraid to call them anti-Semites, not anti-Israel. Call the pig by his name, swine. Yes, this side. This is the yes. Yeah.
I was wondering.
Why don't you get up so I hear you?
You said you you'd like to call